Welcome back to the interrogation room. We continue the third episode with retired or former LAPD officer Ruben Palomares. And Ruben, when we last left you, you were just about to enter the apartment complex and clear it for your safety. And we're talking about an apartment complex that was basically run, so to speak, by the 18th Street gang and a lot of drug sales, right? Can you pick it up from there?
Okay, so now my partner and I are setting up to enter the apartment, so we have to sneak into the apartment to the back, and we have the keys to the gate. So we hop the fence and get into the gate, watching, making sure there's nobody on the top watching us come in, or no one's in that hallway. As we enter that hallway, we enter the stairways that are in the rear of the apartment complex. As we're going in, we have to start clearing hallway to hallway before we get to our room, because our place was in the front, and we want to make sure we don't get observed by anybody walking into that place. We also don't want to know we have keys, because then they're going to know that the managers are working with us, and then that's going to get them hurt. So my partner and I go into the first floor, and as we're clearing the first floor, we remember that the information that we got from our informant is that the gang members also go to the laundry room. They hide there, they hide weapons there, and they hide drugs there, but they also loiter right there. So our initial thing is, well, let's go check before we go into our place. So as we're walking into downstairs into the laundry room, we turn left to the one room where the washing machines are at. I see there's somebody there with his back to us, but you can't see his hands because his back's to us. But what I could see is in the under his armpit is something that looked like resembled like a butt of a weapon. Mm. That's all you can tell. You can't tell much more because his hands are away in front of him and we can't see him. But immediately he got startled, so he turns to us. As he turns, all I can remember is him having a shotgun in front of me. I realized it was a sawed-off shotgun. The moment he turned and he's already like square off with me, I draw my weapon, and I know my badge is here, so I'm able to identify myself. But because it was so fast, I'm not going to give him a chance to pull the trigger or even to. I'm already telling him, LAPD, let me see your hands. But by that time, he's already pointing at me. I ended up firing at the guy. I ended up shooting him several times. He ended up dropping. My partner was over here to my right because we were already in the doorway. There was no way of backing out because we were already in the open area where there was no way we could back out. We had to engage, and when we engaged, he ended up. We fired. I fired several shots. My partner fired twice. He drops. Because protocol, we don't know if he died on the spot or didn't die. We're not the doctor, we're not medical, we're not the RA. So immediately my partner, I kept my gun pointed towards him. My partner ends up having to cuff him. And during that time he's bleeding. My partner cuffs him. I have to cover the entryway because we don't know the gang members are gonna approach and come down and start shooting at us. So my partner has to get on the radio and call for backup. My partner, in the meantime, I have to reload just in case I'm out of, I don't know how many rounds I might have been low on my rounds because I fired with a 45, and the 45 at that time only carried eight rounds. Mm-hmm. I believe 8 in the magazine and 1 in the chamber. It's been a long time. So I reload right away, and I'm looking at the stairway, just covered, waiting to see if anybody's going to come down, and my partner's calling for backup. And I don't know how many minutes it took, but all of a sudden you hear the sirens, light sirens. You start hearing police officers approach.
The whole world comes at that point, right?
Yeah, at that time everybody shows up. From that point, we kick the weapon out of the guy, and then we also find a little container that contained a bunch of rock cocaine. So during that time, I guess the guy had already got his supply. He had already gotten his supply. We got there late. But we startled him, we surprised him, and because of the whole situation, it was a bad setup. Overall, it was just something that wasn't supposed to happen at that time. We were supposed to just go and observe and report, but it turned to a shooting, right. And things can happen any minute, any day. You just don't know. You have to be on your toes. And I get it. The departments are right now being under the microscope. They're being scrutinized for a lot of stuff, but. It's a job that really is risky. It's a risky job.
Right. And then getting into it, obviously we know when we sign up and we accept the badge after the academy, that these are part of the dangers that come with the job, right?
There's a lot of, yes, it's part of it. And I'm sure we all know that, hey, It could happen. You could get insured. You could get killed. And know that that's part of it. You're gonna complain and cry about that. That's part of what you signed up for. I
Right.
think one of the biggest problems in the department is that you're putting yourself out there every day and you're not getting the backup from the management. And that's what starts affecting the officers that I was around and myself also. So I feel that it does have to change, and it will change. I think it'll change for good, especially what's going on right now. But also management has to also take into account that they have to also back up their officers, look into what's going on with their officers, because a lot of officers don't talk about what they're going through. They just keep it
Right.
to themselves.
Right. Now, how
Changing.
long after that shooting did they give you some time off? Did you have to go speak to a psychologist? Was that the normal LAPD protocol at the time?
Yeah, you know what? They do send you to speak to a psychologist, but I want to backtrack a little bit. On my first shootout, they didn't send me to a psychologist, and that shootout was worse than the second shootout. Because my first shootout, I did get wounded. I did shoot the guys, and I was still like on probation. I was a rookie, and I really didn't have a circle of people I could talk to. And I wasn't the kind of guy that opened up and talked. I just tough it out, keep it to myself, man up, because I was already raised in an environment where it was tough, and toughness was necessary to make it in the streets where I grew up in. So it was a normal thing for me to practice, just tough it out and move forward. But you don't realize that you're becoming a hardened monster too. You're becoming a killer. You're becoming a violent individual, and you don't have any mercy for people. You don't have no compassion for people, and that's what I was becoming. Second shooting was nothing to me. It was no big deal. I enjoyed it. I wanted more. I started getting more thirsty for blood. Like I really liked that adrenaline. That rush was excitement for me. It's like I needed to get that fix. I became like an adrenaline drug addict. That was my drug. So I went to the psychologist. This second shootout, my partner and I went to the psychologist. We know the game. We know how to play the games. We know how to talk to talk. So my partner and I, they sit us in front of the psychologist together. They ask us how did we feel about the shooting. Of course, we're gonna lie. We're gonna tell them, oh, I feel terrible that happened. We're really playing the role so they can let us go back to work. I
So
told my
you
partner,
you really believe that officers out there get addicted to the adrenaline?
I believe it 100%, and it's not like it's something you actually thought of and planned out. Once you get like people who are on drugs, the first time they hit that joint, or the first time they snort cocaine, the first time they shot heroin, boom, they get hit with something. They didn't know what was gonna happen when they did it. They just been hearing about it. They just tried it and it felt good. They liked it. They want that same high again. With an officer, when you don't know the feeling when you shoot it out with somebody, the power, everything that comes with it, but when you do it, it's like a high, and you want that high again. You don't know because you've never been there. Now you're there and you had it. The guy that hasn't been through it, doesn't understand you. They just don't. They just know that you're crazy or violent. You're this, you're that, but they don't know what's going on inside you. But you're chasing
Right.
that high.
So, I want to be clear because I don't think you're saying that you were just going out and looking for your next shooting, but did it embolden you to say, you know what, I'm tough. I can go out and face any situation, and if these gang members want to take me on, I'm ready. Is that what you're saying?
Actually, what I'm saying is I enjoyed it. And I did want more. I wanted more of it. I was looking for it. I was hoping it happened again. It wasn't like I was I was just hoping that wherever I was at again, that it happened again, and I got into another one. And that's what I became. That's how I'm speaking from my own personal experience. What I went through during that time, I started like being hungry for it. Like I wanted that fix, that rush.
Right.
So I'm working in an environment that there's nothing but violence anyways. Every day there's shootouts, there's deaths, there's drive-bys. I said it's gonna happen again. I'm ready for it, and I wasn't afraid of getting killed. So yeah, I was like more bold about it.
Mhm. So
More
this is no different than say a soldier who goes to Afghanistan and they get in their first firefight and they get in their second firefight and then they get returned to country, but they just can't wait to get back into the thick of it. Is that the same thing?
That's the same thing. Yes, and you're
Okay.
doing it daily on the field when you go
So
to patrol every day,
so in essence, you're like a combat veteran, but locally.
locally, urban warfare in this environment, the
Right.
community you patrol.
Yeah, and so you mentioned that. Just how often would you have to respond to shots fired and a person down?
daily. It was an everyday event for us. I could be driving in one block and the other block I hear the gunshots. I'm driving I'm driving to that area. I see the guy down, shot on the floor. Now I'm chasing the guy that shot them. It's either MS-13, 18 Streeters, Playboys, Diamond Street, and I'm chasing him now.
Right.
And
And
I'm in,
so for somebody that maybe have grown up in a department that is not as active, where I don't want to exaggerate, but like a Mayberry or something, they may not relate to you as an officer because they're not in the combat zone like you, right?
right, and they probably won't, and that's the difference. But when you're probably watched it on TV, you watch movies or watch other officers get involved. But if you haven't been there or haven't been in that environment, you don't know what happens to your adrenaline gland. What happens to you, stress-wise, adrenaline-wise. It just so many different things happen to you, and your alertness is up there
Yeah.
because your hypervigilance, because you're always with your heads on a swivel.
Yeah.
I work South Central Patrol also, and they have projects. When you're driving in the projects, they're already shooting at you from the projects from up in the top buildings with their AKs. They're already shooting at you. So if you're in the projects driving and they have speed bumps, you have your gun on your lap already, and you're driving and you're looking with your head on the swivel because you might get ambushed,
Right.
and it happens.
Right.
It's your job. You have to go in there.
Right. So it's not like, and for those of you that are watching that have never been in law enforcement, you know, Ruben, I'll ask you this: did you ever reach a point in your career where it was almost surreal that maybe shots were being fired, and most people would think, "Gosh, somebody call the cops," but then you realize that you are the cops and you have to deal with it.
Because of how I was already so programmed in my own mind of just being so used to this. Because I also grew up around that environment, so gunfights, gunshots were normal for me. So when I now as a police officer, a gang officer, it was like, let me catch the guy, let me go find out where I keep, let me go get involved, let me get in it, because I thought that if I don't get there fast enough, they're gonna be gone. I'm gonna miss out on this action.
Right. Right.
And I just became so wired like that
Right.
I wanted to be there.
So how were you accepted? Obviously, for people that, again, weren't in law enforcement, this type of activity, the fact that you're showing valor and you're confronting, shooting, shots fired, and you're there, you're in the thick of it right away, that gained a reputation for you on the department, right?
Yes, it did. That's how my peers in the crash units, other specializers were considering me for the any position that opened up. They considered me and recruit me into the unit.
Right.
Because of that, and they knew that they could trust me. They knew they could depend on me. They knew that if they were in a gunfight and something happened and they went down, that I was not going to buckle. That I was going to basically take action and confront and you deal with the threat.
Okay, so when an MS-13 gang member would be involved in a homicide, I know you weren't assigned a robbery homicide, but you mentioned to me off camera that you would normally get called out with robbery homicide because you had the gang expertise with MS-13, right?
Yes, well, during the time that happened, it was when I'm working the gang unit. I'm working, so I respond to the call because it's a gang I'm supposed to be monitoring. So I'd be in that area because I'm already working that area, working my informants, working even my informants that were in the gangs, even some of the females that were gang girlfriends of the gang members. They'd be my informants too. Sometimes I'd be right away go and get my intel. I go find out through my informants, hey, what's going on right now? What happened? Why did this MS-13 from Leeward come over here and shoot Coronado Click? Or who did what? So Coronado Click shot Leeward Click. The informant tell me, well, there's a war right now. They're fighting for that park, the Leeward Park. The two shot callers from Leeward and Coronado Click, they're fighting for that park because there's so much money coming in through the drug activity there, the drug sales. And the Coronado Click just shot caller took out the shot caller from Leeward Click. And now there's war against each other.
Right. So you'd have your finger on the pulse of the latest of what was going on with MS-13, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And so the homicide detectives would basically use you as a resource, right, to figure out their homicides, right?
Yes. I write the report, hand them the information, the report, get them to my informants. They'll interview them and they'll solve the murder. The suspect will be wherever they found him. And his alibi would have holes in it because it wouldn't work out because he wasn't where he said he was with the informant doing what he was
Yeah.
doing. So they knew everything.
Right. And this would go back to your initial work that you were talking about, where you would get out there and you would contact these gang members from MS and you document them, you take photographs of them, you do a
Yes,
field interview card, and you would know their gang names, right?
right. I know pretty much everything about them.
So you basically had your finger on the pulse of what was happening with MS-13 at the time, right?
Yes.
Okay, so something that most of the people watching may not know about you, and I want to explain this, and we can get into more of this in our next episode. But Ruben, you were a shining star in the department. I mean, you were recruited at a young age. You did a great job in the 21 Jump Street or the high school undercover drug buy program. And then you obviously moved into undercover work with arguably one of the worst gangs in LA, or the worst gangs, 18th Street, MS-13. Yet, being this rising star, you actually fell from grace. So, for those of you watching, I'd like you to stay tuned. We're going to do another episode with Ruben, and he's going to tell you about his subsequent fall from grace.